Hey, Inanime here, with a revised video of one I made over a year ago, giving my reasons why Deku from My Hero Academia is a badly written character. And my opinion hasn't changed. So, let's get right into it, and if you're ready to hear my thoughts, pull up a chair, and let's discuss.
Their power to overwhelm and destroy. The world's most shocking monster.
Izuku Midoriya, aka Deku, had a lot of potential when the series started. My Hero Academia immediately throws the viewer into a world where heroism is idolized and quirklessness is ridiculed. And this sets up Deku's dilemma. He wants to become a great symbol of hope like his idol All Might, but he's one of the quirkless. Naturally, he goes on an intense journey of physical training and faces trial and tribulation until proving his worth in a society who otherwise sees him as worthless. Oh wait, that doesn't happen. In actuality, he by chance meets his idol, goes through some light training, and then is gifted the most powerful quirk in existence. I propose that my preceding scenario would have been a better way to portray Deku as a dynamic main character. Him having to go through obstacles as a person who was born quirkless in a quirk-filled world, and earning a quirk, whether it was one for all or not. Or even showing that you don't need to have a quirk to be a great hero. So, let's delve into his origins to see if we can figure out a source to what makes him so lackluster. We'll start by taking a closer look at a relationship that Deku has with a more interesting character, Bakugo. In the very first chapter and episode, it's made clear that Bakugo is Deku's childhood abuser. He's even the one to give Izuku the name Deku, which is a Japanese insult roughly meaning dummy, and more appropriately, someone who is useless. At the hands of Bakugo, we witness verbal abuse, the destruction of property, physical abuse, and even a taunt to jump off the roof of a building. Nobody reacts to this abuse, meaning it's a common occurrence and something that has been going on for a long time. This could have been the perfect setup for self-esteem issues that Deku deals with later on, which he would have to overcome in his development as a character. Instead, what we get is a whiny, spineless character whose abuse is played off for laughs. He scrambles away in comedic fashion and develops a high-pitched voice when he starts responding to Bakugo. That's not to say that he doesn't suffer from a lack of self-esteem, because it's very clear that he's afraid of Bakugo in the beginning of the series, but these issues never get in the way of his goals. I find it odd that Horikoshi, the author of My Hero, would set up the idea of Deku being an abuse type of character and then going nowhere with it. That is to say, why make him suffer all this excessive abuse from Bakugo in the first place? Ideally, My Hero Academia could have portrayed its main protagonist as someone with mental illness or trauma who doesn't let it define him. Deku could have shown that you can achieve your dreams despite your mind being against you. It would make him more realistic and more of a relatable character. No real person would treat their abuser the way Deku treats Bakugo. You would expect him to hate Bakugo for what he does, but instead refers to him with a friendly nickname Kachin, seemingly because they went to the same school and grew up together, so that makes them childhood friends apparently. Realistically, Deku should have grown up to hold some sort of grudge against Bakugo or society in general for treating him unfairly and marginalizing him. I will concede that he eventually does state that he's no longer afraid of Bakugo, but eventually being 9 chapters after we just witnessed all this abuse and torment. What changed? It was All Might and his gift of One for All. One major factor in Deku's blandness and overall lack of good development is how he obtained his quirk, and how much of everything he accomplishes is unearned. Deku is a total fanboy of All Might's. So much so that when they first meet each other, Deku cannot control his excitement and literally jumps on the man wanting autographs and the like. When he's finally able to ask All Might whether he can be a hero without a quirk, All Might responds that a pro must always be ready to risk his or her life, and that you can't do this quirkless. But Deku does risk his life only moments later in order to save Bakugo, and apparently All Might has a change of heart and decides that Deku is worthy. All Might trains Deku in a matter of 10 months, and he is ready to obtain One for All. I emphasize saying obtain and not use One for All, because as we witnessed, he did struggle to control the ability. Anytime he used it, he broke a part of his body. Much later in the series, yet again, he is gifted not 1, not 2, but 6 more quirks. You can argue that they weren't gifted to him and were always part of the original One for All quirk, but that's a cop-out. A more compelling and heroic character wouldn't have been gifted quirks, but rather would have been one who learned that he was quirkless and whose passion for being a hero was so great that he decided he was going to train and find a way. Deku literally does nothing to even remotely get into any kind of physical shape to ready himself for hero duty. Why? Because he gave up. He preferred idolizing All Might and fantasizing about what could have been rather than thinking about what can I do. It's commonly argued that he could have become a police officer or a doctor. These aren't flashy careers in the My Hero world, but they are professions that produce quote-unquote heroes. And if he didn't want to do that kind of work, he could have at least trained and gotten stronger to be able to land a punch on Bakugo and feel some sort of self-respect and dignity rather than let crying be his first response. And I'm not going to get into the constant crying that Deku does because while it is an annoying aspect of his character, I suppose it does give him a bit of personality, and it's easily explained by the fact that he was primarily raised by his mother, who really didn't do too much to push him towards doing anything with himself. She most likely coddled him and let him cry and express his feelings rather than telling him get out there and make something of yourself. But these are just my assumptions. And speaking of his idolization, Deku's character revolves entirely around his desire to become a hero and imitate All Might. That's it. A great example of this is when he meets Night Eye. In order to convince All Might's former sidekick to give him an internship, Midoriya has to make him laugh. This isn't going to be easy. Night Eye is a straight-laced nerd, and he has the ability to see the future. Deku could have employed a variety of tropes to make Night Eye laugh, possibly using all his smarts to devise some elaborate way to make him laugh, and then unintentionally doing something comedic, or telling a lame joke that produces awkward laughter. But what does he do? He does a bad impression of All Might, because that's all there is to his character, being like All Might and embodying All Might. That's literally all there is to him. He has no other interests, no particular ambitions beyond the dream to be the best hero. The only real struggles remaining for him are contrived obstacles to fit the narrative, an example being the addition of multiple quirks that I mentioned before. There's nothing else to his story. Plus, even after being gifted the One for All, with great power comes great responsibility. Yet with all these abilities, Deku has shown time and time again that he is irresponsible with such great power. Deku is billed as having an astute mind and someone who knows how to take note of what's going on around him. But he never uses this intelligence when it comes to keeping his body intact. When he is told not to overuse his quirk, over and over again he does, and breaks a limb, or two, or three. Even as one of the quirkless, he shows a knack for not thinking clearly and running right into danger, quite literally. As mentioned before, he ran into danger to save his friend Bakugo. Could he realistically do anything to help? No. Did he make the job for the real heroes harder? Yes. They even had to scold him for what he did. It can't be argued that he was showing heroism because it wasn't courage that led him into the danger, but rather a total disregard for human life, mainly his own. But maybe it's the knowledge of a strong plot armor that allows Deku to make these rash decisions. As we see time and time again, he is able to wreck his body, heal up, and do it all over again without any real lasting effects. But wait, you say? These are early examples of before he truly developed into something different? Let's look at the Deku Vigilante arc. There was a lot of opportunity to portray growth here. There was change of character for sure. Deku leaves Yue and his friends behind because he wants to protect them. The villains have made their case and now society is against the heroes. We are seeing how the world, or at least Japan, is reacting to this change of events. Yet, we never really see how it truly affects Deku. Yeah, he looks fierce and his fighting style has changed, but where's the emotional or psychological growth? This arc resolves so quick that it can almost be considered a footnote. Mainly because Deku is still the same person in characterization as he was 100 chapters ago. Which leads me to my final point. It is one thing to have a character that is more popular than the main character of a series, but My Hero has a variety of protagonists who started where Deku was in terms of characterization, and then leapt bounds ahead of him in becoming more fleshed out and interesting characters. Bakugo, Todoroki, Lita, even Lemillion, who wasn't even around in the beginning of the series, went through a much more interesting development and evolution in the limited number of chapters he's been featured in than Deku has in the entire series thus far. Each character has a likability, whether it's because of their personality or the feelings we get learning about their backstory and how far they have become to get where they are today. I don't get that with Deku, and I've resigned myself to believing I never will. But the series is not over, and maybe my opinion will change, however it's not likely. So, until I make another and final video on Deku, I will reiterate that he's boring, lackluster, and his character was just written badly. So, I want to read your thoughts in the comments below, and please like and subscribe. And don't fall into the trap of disliking the video because our opinions differ. That's what the comment section is for. Anyway, I'm an anime, and I'm out. anime.